What we want to look at from here is the key to approaching those difficult conversations. First, we have to start by thinking about the other person's respective tolerance for anxiety. Where is their threshold on that sliding scale relative to your own? So it's a good idea to sort of think about how far along, what number are you? I'd be a 5, my husband would be a 7. If you're a 4, if you're a 6, a 2, understand that other people have very different orientations from you to begin with. Then from there, when you're on that sliding scale, if you know that you're here and someone else is here, you need to start at the farthest point left where you both are in agreement. So if to the degree where we're just having a disagreement, that level of intensity is all that you know that person can handle, and that's also in your safe zone, then that's where you need to bring it down to. The pitfall, what we tend to do wrong, is that we listen to win. When we're in a conversation with someone, our whole focus in listening, our goal in listening, tends to be to figure out when you can interrupt and give your own point, right? You're listening, and the first 2 words that want to come out of your mouth are, yeah, but, right? You're not in agreement, and your goal is to make the other person understand why you're right and they're wrong. Agreed? Typically. So both people end up feeling like you're not listening to me. And you can both yell that as loud as you want, but it doesn't make it easier. And when you have that kind of dynamic going on, there's only 2 possible outcomes. The first is that you're both frustrated in the end and there's no solution, or no resolution at least. And the other option being that there is technically a winner and a loser. Maybe there's a power differential and somebody's going to force the other one to accept it and just say, deal with it. That's too bad. So you've got a winner and a loser. But in the end, really, everybody loses, because there's going to be repercussions for this in future discussions. And when you think about it, for those who like to win, who need to be right all the time, if that is your prime focus, consciously or subconsciously, think about this. If you know that in any disagreement you have to be right and prove the other person wrong, then that means anytime you are in a conversation like that with someone else, the only way for that person to walk away is to accept that they are wrong and be the loser. So you have to think about, is that the kind of dynamic I want? Is that going to invite people in to feel like they can have difficult conversations with me if the only way they'll be able to leave the conversation is knowing that they've lost? And this is hard to sort of swallow, but at the same time, we all like to be right. So how do we find that balance? What's the alternative? The alternative is listening to understand. Now that seems really simple, but I find that things that are simple are not necessarily easy. So in listening to understand, first we need to put aside all of your assumptions, right? We walk into most of these conversations thinking, well, I know what he's going to say. He says it all the time. Same old, same old. I don't need to hear any more. I already know. So I just need to tell him why he's wrong. Instead, accept the fact that if they're still fighting on something, you probably are missing something important. So what is it about their priorities, their values, their concerns? Is there a competing priority, a pressure coming from somewhere else that's forcing them to really just dig their heels in on this one? What is the nature of their resistance? Accept the fact that there is information you do not have. And it's your job in this conversation, in listening to understand, to figure out what that is. Then, in order to do that, before you start in on why you wanted to talk and what you want them to understand, invite them to talk first. Showing that you're willing to listen is disarming. Knowing that they will actually get a chance to talk and the conversation that you invited them into wasn't really just coming in to sit and listen to you harangue for 20 minutes, that helps people to be open to whatever you may say later. But they know that they're going to get to say what they need to say. So from here, strategy number 1 in listening to understand. Take notes. Go old school on it. Be crazy. Take out pencil and paper. Or if you need to, fine, pull out the phone and take notes with 2 thumbs. Whatever makes you happy. But take notes as you're listening. And there's a couple reasons why. First, it helps you remember what they said so you can refer back to it later with greater accuracy. Second, it gives you a chance to jot down points. You don't have to transcribe. Don't write down everything that they say. But when there's something that sticks out to you, it gives you a chance to make a note. And then as you're writing down things that you want to address, you can hold off and ask those questions later. And this is good because it keeps you from interrupting. Nobody likes to be interrupted. But as the person's talking, you're probably going to hear a couple of things that you want to address. Maybe misperceptions you want to correct, or maybe additional information you want to give them, or could be anything. But let them finish. Because what that will also do is it gives you a chance to really organize your thoughts and digest their whole message. When people talk, especially under emotional situations, they're not always logical and organized. It's sort of stream of consciousness venting. Everything that's been stored up and bottled up is now going to come out, and it may or may not be something of a rabbit trail running all over the place, trying to figure out where they're really going with it. So hold off on asking those questions or contradicting or whatever else, because they may actually get to that later on, and that would take it off the table. The issue has resolved itself. What's most important is that as you're taking those notes, you are not doing it so that you can just counterpoint everything that they have said. And this was something that I worked on with a different manager where she was notoriously detail-oriented. So when she started originally, she would say to me, well, I took notes, but then what should have been a 20-minute conversation turned into a 2.5-hour conversation because she would need to go line item by line item litigiously to tell the other person where they were wrong on everything that they said. Needless to say, kind of defeats the purpose of listening to understand. That's just listening to prove all the places where you're wrong and I'm right. Not much of an invitation there. So the idea is that you want to do your best to organize your thoughts, prioritize, and figure out on the big picture, what are the most important points we need to discuss today? And how do these 7 or 8 different issues that you brought up all relate to that topic? Maybe some you're just going to have to let go. And that's hard for some people, to just let go. But if you need your priorities to be met, you have a choice to make. You can either address everything superficially and without resolution, or you can pick a couple of things and get complete. And usually if you can resolve the big issues, the little ones either won't matter anymore or will come into play later with a lot more ease. Strategy number 2, once you've taken those notes, you've done your silent listening, as difficult as that is, you're going to do a nice easy little segue and start by thanking the person for sharing all of it. Because what's important is that they feel safe. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but in inviting them to this conversation, it's most important that you know that you will both feel safe to express your true thoughts, ideally respectfully to each other, but especially when there's a power differential. If the person you want to talk to is under you in the org chart, below you, then there's some challenge there. There's a fear of repercussion if they're honest. So we need to make sure that everyone feels safe. So you want to thank them and then explain that what you're going to do in a moment, now that they've had a chance to say their piece, you're going to do some confirmation checks. And you'll let them know, I'm just going to feed back to you what it is that I heard you say, and I just want you to tell me if I've misunderstood anything. I want to make sure that I understand everything. Is that okay? Ask permission to do this. Who'd say no? But at least at that point, they understand your motivation for what you're about to do. And at that point, assuming they say, sure, go ahead, because you're not launching right into, oh, okay, you're done talking, good, my turn. Mm-hmm. Now you listen. No, you're done. I want to make sure I understood. Please correct my understanding as necessary. So you're going to paraphrase what they've said, use reporting language. And what I mean by reporting language is things like, so you stated that you felt like this. Is that correct? Not interpretation. So it seems like you wanted to do this because of, no, you said this because this. I'm only feeding back to you exactly what you said, even if I think it's the dumbest thing I've heard all day. I'm going to very objectively and calmly say, your complaint is this, your concern is that, your request is this. Do I understand correctly? Because in the end, what people just want to know is that they've been heard. And you can only do that if you make sure that you are not commenting yet. It's still not your turn. You're talking, but you're still in listening mode. This is part of your check. From here, now there may be some back and forth where the person said, no, that's not what I said. Or they may say, well, yes, I guess I said that, but what I meant was, good. Give them a chance to realize maybe they weren't the clearest. They were speaking emotionally and not accurately when they blurted out what it was. So it gives them a chance to adjust their story as well. Then you can't hold that against them, what they said originally. Stick with what they are stating. Then strategy number 3 is to help them listen to understand in return, so that the conversation goes in both directions. Now it's your turn to share your side of the story. So as you do that segue, you can do it with something simple like, all right, so you feel like that I understand what it is that your concern was. Is that correct? They say yes. All right. Let me share with you some additional information. Meaning now it's my turn to give information to you. But what's important for them is to, as you're sharing this with them, you can point out to them what would be referred to as on a kind of a metacognitive level, how you would like them to listen to you. So if they didn't notice what you were doing for them, then point it out. Things like, I held my questions to the end and I would appreciate it if you just let me get to the end also, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Let me just get through it. So we have an understanding for what a mutual behavioral expectation will be, and it is reciprocal at that point and respectful. And you'll ask them to take notes if they need to, and I would strongly, even if they say I don't need to, I might give them the pad anyway, because chances are as you're talking, something will come up, and whether they're writing down what you said or what they want to respond, fine, let them write it down, but that keeps them from interrupting. And if they do start to interrupt and say, yeah, but, you can stop, gently smile and say, I do want to hear what you have to say. And if there's an issue, great, let's talk about it. But again, please let me finish first. Just keep it very unemotional, not robotic, not militant, just, nope, let it roll off. You know, as you feel their emotions rising up, you keep yours nice and easy. And then when you are giving your information, you want to use and encourage them to use a neutral and objective language. There's a big difference between saying, now that I understand what your major concerns are, I think it'll help when you realize that there's some information that I think your team may not be aware of yet. Right. That's objective, as opposed to saying, you clearly don't know what you're talking about, which is what most of us want to say on that emotional level when we've heard some stuff coming at us, right? So that's more subjective, antagonistic, emotional language. Keep it neutral. There's some information that I don't think you possess yet that will help. Here we go. Then in the end, once you've had a chance to share, you can collaborate for solutions. But first you want to make sure that after you have given them your side, you've asked them to feed it back to you, using neutral, objective reporting language. So now I'm done sharing my piece with you, what is it that you understand me to be saying? And ask them to feed it back. Because you'll recognize a variety of things from maybe 1, where you weren't particularly articulate and didn't do a good job of representing what you said. 2, could be where they weren't listening. They zoned out somewhere in the middle, or they missed a big point, or you just didn't say it well and you needed to re-explain it, or it was too complicated for them to understand, but you will understand what they've missed. And then once you've had a chance to clear all that up, then you can move to this and start working towards that collaboration. At which point, when you come to the result, and the answer may still have to be no. I can't give you the raise. No, we don't have the budget for this project. Try again next year. Who knows what the answer is? But at least when you're describing it, you want to try to explain why with that objective language, but then subjectively empathize with them. I understand that it's frustrating. I really do recognize how hard you've worked. I do understand that if we don't do this, there will be this repercussion as a result. This will suffer in quality or in time frame or in whatever else. Yes, I know it's going to cause trouble with the client. So now let's figure out what we can do about that. How can I help you get support to work with that, because I simply can't give you whatever it is, even though I want to. Because often in the end, even if they're not happy with the answer, the fact is most people just want to be respected and heard, first and foremost. So if you've gone through this process, they will at least feel like you have listened, you do truly understand what they need. They may not like that you can't give it to them, but it's not just about you being a jerk, or just because you're insensitive, or you don't care, or you're selfish, or you're whatever else it is. They get it and they get you. So you are both able to maintain the clarity of message and the nature of the relationship where possible. So you are able to attain that balance.
Like, subscribe, and click the notification bell for new videos. To learn more about my legal services, click the links in the description section of this YouTube video or by watching one of the YouTube videos which appear on your screen. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.